All right, it looks like people have joined. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lisa Velardo, and I'm Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Developmental Services. We've got a great forum scheduled for today, and the topic is Individualized Day and Employment Opportunities through STEP. And we have a number of presentations, so we are going to stick to schedule to make sure that we have ample time for questions and answers at the end. We do hold all questions until the end of the presentations to make sure that we get through each of the presentations. But if a presenter is speaking and you have a question or a thought or a comment, feel free to use the chat feature. That's the little bubble, and you can write your question. That's helpful because it lets us know that that's the presentation the question relates to. We are recording today's session, and if there is someone that you know that wanted to attend that was not available this afternoon, we do post the recordings on our website under Fourth Tuesday Forums. Just give us like 3 or 4 days to get the recording up on the website. All right, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Daryl Spears from our Employment and Day Services Division. Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner. I am so happy to be here today. On behalf of our Employment and Day Services Director, Amber Carter, I want to welcome everyone to today's Fourth Tuesday Forum, where we will be talking about successful transitions. We will have some individuals here today that will speak about their experience and hopefully provide some insight and also some encouragement for folks who are looking to make transitions in the current services that they're in into other services. And so we can go to the next slide. So I would like to introduce my team. We have two who are absent today, so I will speak of them first. We have Amber Carter, who is our Director of Employment and Day Services, and we also have Catherine Kate DiStefano. She governs over the West region and is an Education Services Specialist. I will introduce myself. My name is Daryl Spears Jr. I too am an Education Services Specialist for the North region, and I will pass it to my two colleagues, Trevor Rogers and Brian Gresco.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trevor Rogers. I'm an Education Services Specialist out of Central Office.
And Brian Gresco, Education Service Specialist out of the South region.
Excellent. And again, welcome everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today. We will transition into the next slide.
Thanks, Daryl. Good afternoon, everyone. This slide is just a brief overview of our day, pre-employment, and employment service options. But today we're going to be focusing on the two highlighted services that you see, employment transition services and individual supported employment. We're going to hear from individuals who have successfully transitioned into these services, and we're going to have a focus on the transition from secondary education and then the transition from into adulthood, as well as into employment. And before we do that, I just wanted to briefly mention portability. So this is a fancy way of saying that individuals have control over the supports and services that they receive. So if a provider or a service is not a good fit for an individual, they have the flexibility to make a different choice, to go to a different service provider or to self-direct their services. And linked in this slide, we actually have our portability fact sheet as well as our DDS qualified provider list. And we will be sharing these in the chat as well as a few other resources as we go along throughout the presentation. So keep a lookout for those. And I will move on to transportation, which my colleague Brian is going to touch on a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you, Trevor. And yeah, we do have a packed agenda today, so we will be moving pretty quickly through a number of subjects. So, as we're going along, if you have questions, I think we mentioned it before. If you have questions or anything that you want to touch base with, feel free to put that in the chat, and we could kind of address it if we have time in the moment, or we probably more likely will address things at the end of the sessions. So, but we always we always want to make sure that we never lose transportation in the shuffle when we're talking about employment. It's just as with because it's so embedded in every part of all our lives, that includes employment. We feel the need to just make sure that we're always touching base and having conversations about transportation. Um, I'll keep it kind of at the not get too far into the mix, into some of the particulars around transportation, but I did feel it was yeah, good just to have a conversation about some of the things that are going on, particularly around transportation and around the state. There's a lot of that's going on particularly with some legislation that was passed over the last summer. So there are a lot of things going on in terms of transportation that are being required for DDS to address, to make sure that transportation is less of an impediment, less of a barrier for people accessing uh, employment and all the other aspects of where they're trying to get to. We do have a number of different ways to address it. One way, and I'll just make a pitch for the transportation work group that we do have at DDS. It's been around for a little over a year, and we've done a lot of really good work with it. Um, there's been a lot of kind of trudging through and getting information. We spent a lot of time just kind of getting feedback from different stakeholders. There's actually been two separate surveys which were completed. We had a survey that was completed in kind of like late summer into the early fall, so from August to October of last year, and we collected a lot of information directly from individuals and families about some of what's going well with transportation, what are some areas for improvement, things like that. We've actually also completed a survey with providers, which has recently just been complete and hasn't been published yet, but also just getting some feedback about some of the issues that the providers are facing. So one of the things that we're at the point now where I think there's should be a number of recommendations coming from this work group. So we're really excited to see where that leads us in terms of steering DDS forward with its commitment for transportation for our individuals. So if anyone is interested in learning more about transportation, the DDS's transportation efforts in general, or the work group specifically, or if you'd actually like to just learn up how to get more involved, you can feel to reach out to any one of us at the Employment Day Services Unit, as well as Mary Pat DiCarlo, who is heading a lot of the transportation efforts at DDS, including the transportation work group that I mentioned. So always feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk about transportation. And okay, and then we're getting to the main event. So we are here. We were talking a lot. You'll hear a lot about individualized supported employment today, and how that is a great support service for helping our individuals attain employment. People will ask, who's a good candidate for what we call ISE, individualized support employment, and the answer really is anyone who's interested in gaining competitive integrated employment. That's regardless of where you currently are. You could be in one of our day support options. You could be, in a group supported employment option, in our transition service programs. If you have an interest in competitive integrated employment, which is out in the community with they'll call commensurate wages, so competitive wages, benefits, pathways for upward mobility, things like that. If that's something that you're interested in, this is certainly a viable option for you. And we'd encourage you to talk individuals to have these conversations with their support teams, to explore this as a pathway. And when you look at what it actually includes, it really focuses on assisting individuals to find and apply for jobs, supporting individuals in competitive work settings, and there's a job coaching support once work is secured. So it's really about finding employment and then maintaining that employment. And the service is really designed to provide support and supervision, but it's not intended to provide ongoing long-term one-to-one support to help the person complete their work activities. So there is the expectation that there's a gradual fading away of the supports over time. So it's so if you're interested in this type of supports, and after hearing some of the stories that people will be sharing with you today, you can feel free to reach out certainly to your support teams at DDS, maybe your case manager, something like that. Or you can feel free to reach out to anyone at the Employment Day Services unit. We're more than happy to have conversations, get maybe a little bit more in depth into the to talking about what goes part and parcel with individualized supported employment. So I think we are ready to start having some conversations about folks who are involved with ISE. So I can move things back to my colleague Daryl, who will be talking with Keisha, who will be sharing some of her experiences. So we're really happy to have her on board today.
And before we move into that, I will also share that we have our one of our newer brochures. I did just put it in the chat, and I think it's linked on the screen, our Individual Supported Employment, or ISE brochure. And as we go along throughout the presentation today, we'll be putting some of those brochures in the chat.
Thanks so much, Trevor. So before we get into Keisha and the interview we have for today, I do want to let everyone know that currently Keisha is working. So she has sacrificed her break to be here with us and answer some questions about her journey. And so I just want to make folks aware of that. That adds to, our time constraint and why we have to do things in the way in which we're doing them. And so I will ask, because it is 3:15 on the dot, is Keisha here and her job coach, Octavia? Okay, they could be logging on. So in the meantime, I'll just go into a couple of the slides until they log on, and then we can hear from her directly. So here is a visual of Keisha. Hopefully we'll be seeing her soon. And this is a little bit about her story and her vision. I really want to give her the opportunity to speak about this first before we go into any detail about her. She has transitioned from being in group supported employment into individual supported employment. She does have a vision for herself. She has dreams and aspirations as to the type of work that she would like to do. I'd like her to talk about that. And she also has some opinions and views about her experience being in the service that she was in before, group supported employment, and now being in individual supported employment. So I do want to give another opportunity, if she is on, for us to start the interview. I'll give it 1 minute.
Thanks, Daryl. And maybe I can give a little bit more information about the structure of the forums for people who may not have participated before. In each of the Fourth Tuesday forums, we have a combination of presenters. We have wonderful team members like our DDS Employment Day Support team that can talk about services and really provide information around the various options provide some resources. We have providers who provide services who can talk about what they offer and how they offer it. But really the stars of the show each and every month are individuals, family members that talk about how these options are working for them. So
right.
next I'd like to introduce Gunnar Abrahamson, our project director for our ARPA initiatives, and welcome, Gunnar.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gunnar Abrahamson. I am one of the ARPA project coordinators here at DDS. It's always great to be on the Fourth Tuesday forums. There's a lot of good conversation, good dialogue. You guys are going to get the opportunity to hear some pretty exciting stories from some of the folks supported by DDS and some of our private providers. I want to take the next 10 to 15 minutes and talk to you a little bit about ARPA, talk to you about STEP, and then provide a brief overview of some of the STEP transformation plans that are currently approved by the department. So over the past couple of years, I'm sure a lot of folks on this call have heard the term ARPA, whether it was placed in some of our communications that were sent out to individuals and families, whether it was heard through some of your conversations with your case management teams, or maybe through some of your private providers. ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. It was an act that was passed by the Biden administration in 2021. And what it did was give states federal funding to help offset the effects or mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic as states return to normal operation. So what did that mean, and what does that mean for us here at DDS? So we took that federal funding, and I'm going to kind of simplify it here for time's sake. We took that federal funding and put it really into three main buckets. The first of which was taking that federal funding and providing stabilization payments to our private providers. So much like the federal government stabilized states by disseminating those federal dollars to help stabilize them as they came out of COVID, we provided stabilization payments to provider agencies to help them return to normal operation as they exited the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's kind of that first piece. The second piece, and this one's a little boring, but I think it's necessary to mention, was we took some of that federal funding, and there's a bunch of different initiatives happening internally to DDS that we're not going to get to touch on today, but they mainly focus on streamlining a lot of the administrative and operational processes internal to the agency to make sure that a lot of the information and data that we're collecting is properly synthesized and also shared effectively across different DDS divisions. And then on the back end, it's important that it is effectively conveyed to individuals and families in our private provider agencies. So a lot of federal funding was focused there. So there's that kind of second piece. And the last bucket, and this is where we're really going to start kind of get into the weeds just a little bit today, is we took the federal funding, about $24 million, and we tied it to our Supporting Transformation to Empower People, or STEP initiative. So we took that $24 million and we developed a tiered incentive program for private providers to take advantage of when they submitted and achieved various objectives within a STEP transformation plan. So at this point in time, I'm sure a number of you have heard or read documents on STEP, but you may still be asking yourself, if you're relatively new to these forums or new to these conversations, what's focuses on highlighting some of the progressive support options that are offered through DDS. So for the sake of today's conversation, when you're talking about employment, we're specifically talking about customized employment, individualized supported employment, employment transitional services, individualized day vocational, opportunities that really move individuals directly into or taking steps towards meaningful employment opportunities. I know previously on the call, someone talked about career trajectories, and that's absolutely applicable to today's conversation. You know, individuals and folks supported by DDS have a number of goals and aspirations, and STEP really aims to transition folks to the right support where they can be set up for success. So in addition to employment, you have things like community companion home, you have supportive housing, assistive technology, remote supports. And the idea is that providers will submit STEP transformation plans. They're reviewed and approved by the department, and then that provider starts to execute various objectives within that plan. So the bedrock of a lot of these transformation plans is the individuals that participate in the transitions from your classic congregate supports so on the day side, day support options, group supported employment, and moving to more home and community-based support options like that customized employment or individualized supported employment. So to give you a little bit of an idea on the scope for our STEP initiative, I mentioned that $24 million in incentives that's allocated to those providers. Currently, we have 19 providers who have submitted STEP transformation plans, and each plan is as unique as the individuals that participate in that plan. Each plan is as unique as that private provider. You have, I think, 12 plans out of that 19 that have some sort of day transformation component. They're either solely focused on day or they have some sort of transition capacity built within them. So super exciting stuff. I talked a little bit about the metrics. The next thing I wanted to do was to share a document with all of you. I'm going to go through a couple slides here to try and give you a better picture of some of that transformational change that's being spearheaded by our private providers. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me see if I can find the right window. There we go. All right. All right, can everyone see this?
We
Yes.
can.
All right, so this document was developed by the ARPA team. Again, it's to give a kind of a comprehensive breakdown of all the transformation plans that have been submitted and approved by the department to date. So after I close out here, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I'm going to drop the link to this form that's available on our website in the chat. And I'll also make sure that the Deputy Commissioner's Executive Secretary shares this via email with the group. So a couple quick things before we go into two of the transformation plans I want to provide overviews on. You've got this helpful table of contents. So if you're looking for a specific provider's plan, you can come into this table of contents and merely click on their name and it'll drag you immediately to their slide. Additionally, something I want to make mention of, it's incredibly important and it's really a focal point of the work that we do here at DDS, is the inclusion of the Charting the Life course material. It's something that the commissioner and deputy commissioner are pretty adamant about, that it be a focal point of not only this document and some of the work that we're doing around our STEP initiative, but you'll find it as kind of the bedrock to the conversations that we have with individuals and families who are supported through DDS. You'll find it as a centerpiece to our new DDS website that I encourage all of you to go on and check out. So just wanted to make mention of that before we dive into these two transformation plan overviews. So we're going to go back up to this table of contents, and the first one I wanted to cover is the Kennedy Collective. So I'll click on KC, it'll bring me right to their plan. This is one of our largest and most ambitious day-focused transformation plans. It was approved, I think, a month and a half ago. It was under review by the department for a number of months. It includes 41 individuals. So 41 individuals, 41 case management teams, 41 support teams, worked with folks who were interested in, again, transitioning away from those classic congregate day supports like your group supported employment or your DSOs, and said, hey, you know, I've been in this support for a number of years. I'm interested in transitioning to an individualized day vocational opportunity, an individualized supported employment opportunity, and Kennedy Collective built them into this plan. So 41 individuals, you have 40 individuals that are going to move from group supported employment to ISE, individualized supported employment. And then you've got one individual that's going to move from individualized day vocational to ISE. And I think what's so unique about Kennedy Collective's plan is what they're going to do on the back end with the incentive dollars that they're going to receive through the execution of this plan. So there's $3 million worth of incentives tied up for KC for this plan. And I think, again, what's really unique is providers have options on how they want to spend this funding. There's really not too many strings attached. They can use it for improvements to their programs. They can use it for modifications to their homes to support individuals with a higher level of need. What Kennedy Collective has done is look to hire on additional staff that are going to help to support these individuals as they move to ISE and that individualized day vocational. Specifically, they're bringing on a job developer who's going to help develop employment opportunities for individuals who transition to ISE. They're bringing in 2 career advancement training specialists who are going to work on career planning and also act as a liaison between the individual and potential employers out in the community. So really helping to bridge that gap. And then in addition, they're going to hire on 5 vocational training and support specialists. So those folks are going to work on job coaching, resume development, work site support, case management needs, everything that agency needs to properly provide a wraparound support system for those individuals as they transition to those home and community-based support options. And one last noteworthy piece to KC's plan is as of November 30th, 2023, KC will no longer offer sub-minimum wage programs. All individuals who participate in Kennedy Collective's programs will be making a competitive minimum wage. So that's something that was unique and special about KC's plan. We're super excited that this was approved, and I've heard this is a plan out of the West region. I've heard that they're already transitioning folks over to ISE. So super exciting stuff. The last plan I wanted to review, and then I'll hand it back to the Deputy Commissioner, was CUNE. Let me just take a look at my notes here. So CUNE, this is a bit smaller of a plan. I'm on the wrong one. Deputy Commissioner, you want me to turn it back to you?
No, I was just letting you know that it was the wrong slide.
Yeah. Well, I might have to fix one of those links. I apologize, folks. The CUNE link, I think, brings us to Dungarvan. So I'll make sure that I'll troubleshoot that before I send it out. So CUNE is a bit smaller of a plan. It's day focused. There's not a residential component to it. It's 10 individuals, and they're going to be moving from group supported employment to customized employment and individualized supported employment. So a bit smaller. I think there's upwards of $750,000 worth of incentives that CUNE can take advantage of as they complete different objectives within their plan. But I want to touch on a couple important pieces that CUNE looks to bring in to support those individuals during those transitions. So the first of which is weekly educational programming, which is going to have a focus on independent employment. So really getting those folks prepared for what they might expect as they begin to reduce their staffed hours and move out into the community and get a competitive job. They're also going to focus on monthly employment support groups. So peer support in addition to staff support for those working or looking to move towards competitive employment. And then another unique piece that CUNE is going to build into their transition program is quarterly family nights. So educating families on CUNE's programs, which are aimed at helping participants find independent work with an emphasis on overcoming perceived barriers to employment. I've been with the agency, I've been with DDS for about 3 years, and I have heard a number of conversations where people do express reservations about folks transitioning from a DSO or a GSE into a competitive minimum wage job or customized employment or ISE. So what's unique about CUNE is they're bringing in these additional resources to help knock down those barriers and help support not only the individuals, but the families as they navigate that path towards a more individualized support option. The last piece here, and then I'll turn it back over to the Deputy Commissioner, is they're going to have a job coach on and hire that person on to support individuals in need of intensive job coaching as they start new jobs. So I thought that was a unique piece. Even after that individual has secured employment, the support doesn't stop there. And that's really what we look for before these transition or transformation plans are approved, is that provider has the capability to provide support before, during, and after that transition occurs, right? When I think of a personal example, when I went to college, it's not like my freshman year when I moved into the dorm, my family said, okay, Gunner's out of the house. We don't need to worry about him anymore. They were still checking in on me as I was getting familiar with that setting, as I was starting to make friends and figure out what my schedule was going to look like. And it's very similar for these experiences as well. We want to make sure that the wraparound support system is going to be there so that individual, that person is set up for success in that new environment. So that, unfortunately, is a brief overview. There's a lot more to that document. I encourage you all to take a look at it. I'll close by saying this. I don't think state employees are often thought about as being innovative, as being creative. And I think the work that we do here at DDS, I think what we're doing through our STEP initiative and the day-to-day work that our case management teams, our EDS team, our support teams do challenges that notion. I think what you'll see here is a bunch of folks who continue to take a step outside of their comfort zone and really folks who are forward thinkers. I'm thinking of that next opportunity. What does the next support option look like to better the life of the people who come through DDS to access services? So I'll leave you with that, and I'll share that document with all of you. Deputy Commissioner, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. Actually, things work out for a reason, and Gunnar just described 2 transformation plans, and so it's really perfect to now hear from Keisha about, what do these transformation plans result in? And so welcome, Keisha. Thank you for joining us today. And Daryl is back with us, and I'm so excited to hear from you and hear what's been going on in your life and a little bit about your employment. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, hi. Oh,
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner. Keisha, how are you?
good.
Good, good. So we're going to go over some of the same questions that we discussed in our meeting before. I won't use up too much of your time because I know you have your day to get back to. So tell us a little bit about where you work and some of the things that you do where you work.
I work at Charlotte, Manchester. I do in Kingston, get in the bathroom, do the try, do the carriage, or the street, do the
Okay.
body area. Yeah.
So you do a number of different things at ShopRite. Out of all those things that you listed, is there anything that you would consider to be your favorite? Is there something that you like to do the most?
No, not really.
No.
Oh.
Okay, that's the same answer you gave me the other day, which is fine. There are many of us who enjoy all the parts of our job, and there's nothing specific that we like the most. So now I want you to tell us a little bit about group supported employment. What was it like when you were in group supported employment, also known as GSE?
For the group, hope you pay work. They hope we pay work together. I don't like it. Do the job, pay work together, and I don't like it I don't like I do that. Yeah.
Okay. So in group supported employment, you guys work together, you guys
Yeah.
helped each other out on the job. That's really what group supported, one of the key points of group supported employment is individuals being able to support each other and do the work together. Now tell me, what is the difference with how you work now? Why did you want to leave group supported employment and now be in individual supported employment?
More responsibility to do. More responsibility to do. With the group, you don't know. It's more out there for you, a job out there for you.
Okay, that makes total sense. There may be more job opportunities out there for people who are working independently. And I know in our conversation the other day, that was one of the things that you were talking about. You were talking about how you desire to work independently and you really wanted to work on your own. So, I appreciate the fact that you're meeting with us today, and I'm glad we discussed some of the things as far as the difference between where you went when you were in group supported and now being in individual supported employment. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to know who Keisha is outside of work. So what are some of the things that you like to do? What do you like? What do you like to spend your time?
And on my bike, on basketball, play my game, play basketball, on my bike, uh, all the color book.
Okay. All right, riding your bike. You mentioned the coloring book. You mentioned basketball. That's one of the top sports, in our country and all around. Who's your favorite team?
To Nike, and the sun.
Lakers, and you said in the sun?
Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice. You know, when we had our conversation the other day, I mentioned how women's basketball is definitely on the up and coming and it's getting a lot more of attention as it should. And so I definitely appreciate that. There's one more thing that I want to talk about before I let you go, and that is your interest in music. We established that music was one of the things that we both have an interest in. And so, what are some of the artists that you like to listen to?
Drake, Lil Wayne, Kind of Beat, Nicki Minaj.
Okay. All right. Those are all great artists. And if I'm not mistaken, their genre is hip hop. So we appreciate the fact that you enjoy that genre. And I want to extend a very big thank you for meeting with us today. I know that it wasn't easy. You had other things going on. So we appreciate you being here. Well, we really wanted to highlight you and really congratulate you and commend you on the success that you have had and the growth that you've had when it comes to employment. It seems like you understand the value of being in group supported employment. You understood what that means to, work alongside your peers and have your peers help you get the job done. But then you also understand the value in transitioning into ISC and working independently and perhaps being more marketable to employers working in solidarity. So I definitely appreciate that. And I want to thank you from the EDS unit and DDS for being here today. And is there anything that you want to leave us with, or are you all set?
I get paid, do I?
You get paid well. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. What is some of the things you do with your money?
Go on vacation or the yeah, go on vacation or yeah, go to the casino.
Oh, okay. I love the casino myself, and I also love vacation. And I'm so happy that you said that because we have an employment video where we highlight the benefits of people being employed. And one of the things that I had mentioned in the scripting for that is individuals having access to vacations and whatnot by way of working. So I'm extremely happy that you get to experience that. And again, I really want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank Goodwill of Western and Northern Connecticut for collaborating with us to have Keisha here. And Keisha, we all thank you. There are people who have applauded you and they're very happy to hear your story. So we're really hoping you have a good rest of the day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So Keisha, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but you're getting all sorts of emojis. You're getting hearts and clapping hands, a lot of really nice positive feedback. And there's some comments in the chat. And usually we save questions to the end, but I definitely can share comments. You rock, Kaisha. Thank you, Kaisha. And again, a lot of thumbs up and applause. So I know, when you've worked all day, it takes some energy and some commitment to join in a discussion like this. And so thank you for taking the time out of your schedule.
All right.
And if you want to stick around, you were absolutely welcome to. Next, I'm going to introduce our next presenter. Brian Smith is the Assistant Regional Director for the South Region. And Brian's going to talk a little bit about transition from school to work. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. And Keisha, wonderful job. I would rather have really followed Gunnar than yourself because you're a tough act to beat. So thank you for sharing. So going to really quickly talk about transitioning students into adult world. We right now have 9 positions of transition advisors, 3 in each of the 3 regions. We are expanding that due to new hire ability through Public Act 23-137. So we're doubling up. We're really excited. You'll see it says 18 to 22. We're looking at how aggressive we can be to dip down to 16 to 22 and get involved at an earlier age with youth who are in school systems in the transition conversation, since State Department of Ed and the guidance in Connecticut is transition conversation and planning and assessment start at 14. So we're trying to be much more aggressive with that as well, with the enhancements of all our staff. We will be hopefully full complement by the end of June. We had 2 of our candidates starting in June because they are coming from school systems and wanted to complete their educational years with their classrooms. So what do our transition advisors do? They work in collaboration with our peers and colleagues over at the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services. An opportunity to increase employment outcomes for all the youth coming through the schools into adult world. We have a number of pilot programs and other initiatives that we are collaborating with BRS on. And have an opportunity to inform individuals and families about employment and day options through DDS and through their community resources and other external stakeholders that are out there that also offer services that are non-DDS that they can tap into as Connecticut residents. Assist students with transitioning from school to the adult world. So working through all those little logistics, next slide, that you have to navigate through as you approach that age of 18. This here is a slide that we utilize in a variety of different presentations. It's just kind of a step-by-step that we have outlined for students, professionals, as well as families. First thing is, who is your transition advisor? Connect with them. Your school system will know who the DDS transition advisor is because we'll have assigned geography like we do now, but we'll be revising that in the next couple months. They'll know who to reach out to in DDS. Exploring your decision-making options. Talk to probate court, talk to Disability Resource Connecticut about different decision-making options because guardianship and others might not be the pathway that you need or desire for yourself. Pursuing supplemental security income, or also known as SSI, through the Social Security Administration at 18. And then pursuing Connecticut Medicaid, or Husky C, as we call it here in Connecticut. That is very critical to getting services through DDS. In order to be eligible for employment and day service funding, you do need to have the Husky C so we can enroll you in a Medicaid waiver program. The connecting with BRS actually starts earlier than that. It's going to be early, like 16, 17, 18 in school system, because they too also, and my colleague from BRS, Stephanie, will be presenting soon after me. They have level up counselors assigned to each of the high schools as well. So that connection with BRS may actually not be number 5. It might be up at number 1 or number 2 for that matter. So it could fluctuate in the priority here. 2 other things, employment. You're going to need a photo ID. Go to work on that with DMV, make the appointment and get a non-driver's license photo ID. For those who have the ability, interest, and desire to drive, pursue that driver's license. And registering to vote at 18 as well. There is hyperlinks, as you'll see in that arrow. I'm going to bring you to a little bit of a checklist that we have designed, and you can literally walk through and check those activities off as you navigate some of these processes and others. Next slide. DDS is broken into 3 regions, as I mentioned briefly before. So this is a nice little color code. It doesn't get down into the minutia of some of the smaller towns as much as we would like, or some of those suburbs like Rowayton in Norwalk or Huntington, Shelton, or things like that. But it does get into the bigger cities and municipalities. Point of contact for most folks who do not have an assigned case manager who have gone through and been determined eligible for DDS services would be the area or regional helpline. So the email addresses are present there, as well as the toll-free numbers here in Connecticut. We do have the helplines in New Haven for the South region. We also have the primary helpline in Cheshire for the West and East Hartford for the North. I can speak in the South region. We do have some of those case managers throughout the 3 regional offices, so they are more in proximity to the various communities we support. Next slide, please. I believe the next 3 are the current, and I want to express that word current, breakdown for the transition advisors based on region. So that vacancy is being filled. So these towns that you see in each of these next 3 slides, there will be a division of these, and we'll be sharing the wealth amongst all the towns between 6 of the transition advisor staff per region. So their geographic coverage areas will be smaller in number for as far as the towns and municipalities. Again, with a heavy promotion of getting involved in the school system earlier and having much more intimate and personal relationships, both with school personnel as well as individuals and families who are connected with DDS or who need to get connected with DDS. So we're really excited about the enhancements to our staff in this area and what this could blossom into for youth going through the transition years. So I know since I'm in the South region, I've been working with my supervisors and managers on our South region transition advisor. We have a template already out, ready to go. We're just waiting for a few people to come on board in their new roles before we start making that divide happen. So by July 1st, all that division will occur, and our new transition advisors will be in contact with school districts that they're now going to be supporting. So I think that's my final slide, if my memory serves me correct, and I can kick it over to my friend Stephanie from BRS.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you, Deputy Commissioner Trevor and the team for including me to be a part of this conversation today. Forgive me for sounding a little nasally. My 2-year-old child shares everything under the sun with me, so I might sound a little congested from time to time. But I'm very excited to share with you how our partnership works with DDS and the services that we can provide to some of you individuals moving forward. So I'm going to cruise through the PowerPoint. There's kind of a real lot of information, primarily focusing on our adult side of services. And again, there's a lot of information. We don't have too much time to talk about it. So I certainly want to piggyback off of Brian, but also provide you the nuts and the bolts. So as Brian introduced, I'm Steph Trelli. I'm a transition counselor with the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services Western Region, and I often partner with the transition advisors through DDS, navigating the transition process. So as Brian had referenced, we received a lot of grant funding to initiate the development of transition counselors, in particular under the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services. And what does that really look like, just to give you a little overview on the streamlined process. So as Brian mentioned, we do have 2 programs, the Level Up program and the adult side of services. When an individual turns 16 years old, they are able to enroll in our Level Up program, and the only criteria would be having an IEP or a 504 plan out of the district. With that being said, anything that you can think of that goes into preparing for the world of work in areas of work readiness, advocacy, work experiences to identify what we like, what we don't like, can all be provided while they're still in school under the support of the LEA. As they begin to transition into their final year of school, things that Brian kind of briefly touched on, we start paying very close attention to. What is the documented disability? Are they connected with DDS? How can we assist the families and the school districts in bridging that transition gap, identifying what would be the most appropriate path? And I think that's a nice segue to go into the next slide, please. So the purpose of Voc Rehab, right, is to really empower individuals with disabilities to ensure that they're self-sufficient, independent, and they're being integrated within society. Go ahead. I'm not going to read every bullet in great detail, but it's definitely there for your future reference. And go ahead, next slide. Okay, so our mission. Again, as I previously kind of just touched on, anything that we can provide in efforts to prepare an individual to get a job, keep a job, and be happy at a job, right? I think that's the most important, and I think that's been the consistent message that has been being really delivered here. With that, we always want to ensure that we're meeting the consumer's needs, right? And we're identifying areas of interest and kind of blending and meshing alongside DDS, what is the most appropriate employment goal given those functional limitations, and how do we identify the needs in order for them to be successful into the world of work? And as I continue in the slides, you'll understand what some of those services may include. Go ahead. So who do we serve? As I mentioned, if a student is enrolled under Level Up, it's a very seamless transition to the adult side of services. Any physical or mental impairment that has a substantial impact on their ability to enter or maintain employment. Just to kind of additionally give you some nuts and bolts. Under Level Up, as I mentioned, their last year We usually begin the transition process. So not just identifying which appropriate employment path, and as previous presenters had indicated, through DDS, there's an ISE model, there's GSE model. Our agency is primarily focused on competitive integrated employment. So what does that primarily look like? Placed within the community with minimal supports. Okay. And thank you, Trevor, because I was going to slap our website information in there for additional information. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, competitive integrated employment, full or part-time, minimum wage or above. So this would not be a group supported employment. Okay. Again, it kind of yields the comparable income to others, and it's typically found within the community. We do support individuals following the pandemic. As you can only imagine, a lot of individuals were very, very interested, if not confined, to working from home. So we do support in obtaining work from home positions as well. Next slide, please. So comparable benefit providers, I'm not going to explain all of these in great detail, but obviously you can see that DDS is on the list, right? And there are usually our primary provider that we work very comparably with. Just to provide you folks a few examples to add some validity to this. So if an individual does have a diagnosis of intellectual disability and we're working with them under Level Up programming, as they transition out, we are going to want to discuss with the family their last year of secondary school, making the informed choice to seek group supported employment through DDS. We'll also talk to them about our 511 process, which really implies making that informed choice to seek sub-minimum wage, providing extensive information on customized employment, which we are also a provider of, working alongside DDS with some of the providers that were previously mentioned, such as the Kennedy Collective, et cetera. This is where we really, and I believe, I'm not sure who mentioned it. It might have been Gunnar. However, really getting to know, stepping outside that comfort zone, getting to know the individuals, taking the time to identify what the needs are. Just because we like something doesn't mean we're going to be necessarily good at it, right? Take it from me. I'm the person who can speak on that the most. And just because we're good at something doesn't mean we're going to like it. So we going through the discovery phase, we spend the time. What are the hobbies? What are the interests? And we try to mash all of that together. And obviously taking into consideration the employer's needs, right? So perfect example, local Burger King does not have janitorial staff or porter staff. Usually it's on the responsibility of everyone kind of working there. It's your turn, very impulsive shifts and tasks, et cetera. So an example of customized employment may really look like meeting the employer's needs, matching it with the consumer skill sets, and moving forward with creating an opportunity of employment, whether it be 5 or 10 hours a week for janitorial duties at a specific area of business. Next slide, please. So the eligibility criteria moving towards the adult side, as I mentioned under Level Up, the only eligibility criteria would be being in a 504 or an IEP plan. As we transition to the adult side of services, and most individuals with a diagnosis of intellectual disability will be found eligible by default. If they are a Social Security recipient, they will be presumed eligible based on federal funding provided. And we usually can expedite the eligibility relatively quickly. As we're transitioning through all of the agency changes alongside DDS, et cetera, we have also been able to utilize a lot of school records to justify the documentation of a disability, okay? So rule of thumb, do they have a disability that requires some support in areas of vocation? Yes. Can they benefit, and do they require? Those are the eligibility criteria. We have 60 days to determine the eligibility. Again, though, with the streamlined process and the transition counselor, such as myself, coming into the picture a little earlier, as Brian had referenced, we are usually able to expedite the eligibility relatively quickly. Next slide, please. So employment plan development, very similar to an IEP in a school system, we have yet another acronym of confusion, IPE, Individualized Plan of Employment. So on that plan of employment, we identify any comparable benefit that can be used to benefit them in working alongside us. So we'd like to put any service and every service that they're currently receiving. There's a lot that goes into the world of work, right? We need to consider all avenues when identifying that plan of employment. Specific vocational goal. So unlike maybe several agencies where the goal is employment, once we identify the goal, the employment goal, we have to identify it in a very specific way. Okay. So for example, if we're moving forward with trying to find a stock job, we have to be very limited and specific in terms of what that goal is. And when we contract with rehab providers bounded under their policies, we have a little flexibility. However, it's typically very employment goal driven, very specific. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the adult services that would be placed on the plan of employment, vocational guidance and counseling, right? We spend an extensive amount of time talking to folks about their goals. We are the people. Sometimes we are the only people they have, right? If it takes a village and we can partner with DDS, that's even better. That's a perfect world, right? Benefits counseling. So for folks who are receiving Social Security or SSDI, SSI, and they begin working, the number one concern is usually how much our benefits will be garnished, if at all. So we do have in-network, in-house benefits counselors that can meet with you individually to discuss how those benefits will be impacted, if at all. Job search assistance, we're big due to the WIOA push. We're huge on skill training, career education. Our employment consultants recently took on new innovative roles to partner with our workforce boards in creating additional skill training and career advancement to individuals who are looking to do so. School to work transition services, as I've been discussing lengthily on the job training. So these are, excuse me. These are circumstances where if the job coach is contracted under the Kennedy Collective Ability, et cetera, do not know the job in which they are doing, and they cannot provide the extensive support to the individual on the job, we may partner with employers to create on-the-job trainings. The employers are compensated at 130%. We cover the wages during the paid internship or on-the-job training. It's a win-win for everybody. Assistive technology, I'm not going to go into in great detail, but again, if anything and everything you can really think of that someone would require on the job, we certainly explore it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and this is just an additional overview. Some of the additional services, for example, if individuals are unsure what their goals, interests, skill sets are, we have several assessments that we can, administer in efforts to determine that. I think it's important to mention, and I'm not sure if it's listed here, it's listed in a very, very diplomatic way, but verbatim, I think it's important for me to say, very similar to DDS, we have job coaching. Our agency, although it's considered a short-term employment agency, again, with the partnership of DDS is a long-term provider, okay? So once the services are successful, for example, we have job placement services, job coaching. Again, the exploratory stuff is a given. But once placement is secured, whether it's in a customized employment route or a competitive integrated route, we would partner or continue to discuss a transition yet again following the successful case closure on our end. Okay, so that's where DDS would get re-involved and identify how that they will support the consumer moving forward once our services have been successful. Something I additionally just want to mention in the 1 minute that I have, Deputy Commissioner, I'm paying attention to the time very closely, is something called a trial work experience. And it's used, I think it's important for me to mention that because it's kind of like Amazon in the world today. We can try it before we buy it, right? So prior to going out there and just throwing individuals to the wolves in an employment setting with or without a job coach, right? I think it's important that we can create these snippets of temporary work experiences, whether it's under both sides, the level up or the adult services, to give the consumers an opportunity to try before they buy, right? It's not uncommon that we have this perception about what a job may look like, but when we're really in it, seeing it to believe it, it might indicate otherwise, right? And usually our job is to push the primary support of helping the consumer evaluate their own decision. Something briefly, I will conclude with this, and you can switch to the next slide. Something that I will also mention is, along with several of the grant funding that we have received, we have Connecticut PI, Pathways to Integrated Employment. So these are the individuals that, even though at this very moment in time, they might not be able to benefit from that competitive employment without the continuous supports. However, they're not interested in group supported employment. They might be working with DDS on ISE. We also have a Connecticut PI program, and those counselors work in close conjunction with the Department of Developmental Services to create what we call that pathway to integrated employment. And it may look like some assessments being done, some trial work experiences being done alongside of what services the DDS team has to offer in conjunction. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for allowing me to present, and I'll turn it back over to Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Steph. And I know Brian had to leave, but the complimentary presentations just really demonstrate how closely you and our transition team worked together, and it was just a great description of the service system. So thank you. I'm amazed that you were able to get that much information into that period of time.
Well, I joke because, you know, they have shipped me on the news once, and the preparatory questions that they gave me, I could have talked for about an hour. I get there, I'm told I have 3 minutes.
This is it.
So
and I want to reiterate that not only will the recording for today's session be on our website, but all these great resources will also be on the website. So there's just chock packed with information, and you'll be able to go back and review the resources as well. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Daryl Spears Jr. and our colleagues at United Cerebral Palsy. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner. So we're getting to another great part in our presentation today, and coincidentally, we're getting to the last of our presentation today. We have some individuals who we want to highlight who have displayed a successful transition to pre-employment services. These individuals have transitioned out of DSO support. Today with us, we have Chuck, Scott, and Ting. And before we start the interview, we're just going to speak a little bit about the service that they're currently in. So they have transitioned to Employment Transition Services, which is a time-limited community-based vocational services. It has 3 focus areas: career discovery and exploration. They talked a little bit about that with BRS, skill development, and then also self-advocacy. The goal of this service is for individuals to transition into employment first and foremost, and then immediately after would be an employment supported service. So with that being said, we will unmute our panelists for today, and we will begin. So just out of curiosity, do we have everyone here today, or do we just have one individual?
Well, everybody else at home. Hi, we're your safety.
Hello.
Right here we have
Yeah.
Chuck. Ting is also on. He's virtual at home, and Scotty's home is working on some Wi-Fi
Hi.
issues. He may or may not be joining. We'll see.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Our team has met with these guys before, and so they're a really great bunch. And I'm sure Chuck can provide us with a lot of insight as to some answers to our questions, as well as Ting. So I will go ahead and get it started. So tell us a little bit about ETS. What are some of the things that you guys are doing in Employment Transition Services?
We're learning about jobs.
Okay.
Where we can find that place to work and different skills.
Okay, that sounds great. And so if you could tell us some of the places that you go to while you're in employment transition services. So for those who perhaps didn't hear Chuck, he talked about in ETS, they learn a lot about jobs and they learn about the skills that are necessary for work in those jobs. So tell us about some of the places that you all visit.
We went to library and I worked with Gabby and Lonnie with that too.
And what are some things that you, Gabby, and Lonnie do at the library?
We clean toys and other things like
Okay.
we're cleaning up books, help them with the library books and all that.
Okay, that sounds great. Working with the library books and building skills. So tell us a little bit about um, working with your peers. How do you like working with some of the other individuals who go out to the library with you or to some of the other places in the community that you like to visit?
They're like family. We all work together.
That's really nice, Chuck.
That was an awesome response. I appreciate that. You know, there's only a few of us who work in my unit, and I would say that we definitely work in a family style environment. So that was very nice of you to say that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Sure, go ahead. Whatever you were getting ready to say.
Is there anything else you wanted to add about the library?
Um, we're done. I didn't done coming a lot.
Mike, you know someone at the library?
No, yeah,
Or
the
some-
library, the time that comes in, Michael.
Yeah.
I work with
Hold on.
How do you like working with Diane, the supervisor of the library?
good.
Not for this?
Does that know her?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chuck. What about you, Ting? Ting, do you like working with your team and the different individuals that you go out in the community with?
Yeah, I used to do that with I used to do that with Eric when we went out to do the class and all that.
Let's go drive it.
Remember?
Hi,
when-
Jane.
Let's let Ting. Hi, Ting. How are you?
But here's my NASCAR.
How you doing?
Here's my NASCAR this weekend.
NASCAR?
Don't know.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Ting
were
wants to tell us
talking
about NASCAR this coming weekend.
You want to be a race car driver.
Ting, do you go to the library with Scott and Chuck?
He's on mute.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if his staff can hear, but they're more than welcome per se, to unmute Ting. There's one thing that we
Oh,
discussed in the
sorry.
meeting. Okay, perfect.
Hey,
Ting,
were
do
just
you?
talking- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna simply ask him what you guys had asked. Ting, do you work with Chuck in the community?
Yes.
Yes. And how do you like it? Do you have fun?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Very nice. And so, Chuck, I know that you guys go to the library. Is there any other place in the community that you guys visit that you actually like to go to?
I don't know.
Not yet, but we are gonna go try out for golf tournament. I might
Okay.
not-
Are there other sites that you guys go to in addition to the library?
I've been to the library, yeah, but they've been like cleaning toys and all that.
What about on Wednesdays? Where do we go on Wednesdays? Where we see Kelly and
Incoming Kelly.
Alex.
you got it, yeah.
Nice, Tank.
Ya empezó plastic con deporte, but I think that before, because I am.
I'm so,
Hold on.
if you all don't mind to repeat, where is the location on Wednesdays?
30 minutes.
I don't know where that is.
Gourmet Galley in North Stonington.
Gourmet Galley. That's it. Thank you. That's what I wanted to make sure that everyone heard.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't take up too much more of you guys' time, but there is something that I did want to ask that we asked the other day, which really had a great answer. And Ting and Chuck, I'm not sure if Scott is on, but anyone is welcome to answer. How did you feel when you left your other program and you started transition services?
I felt kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know what you're gonna do. I never said over here.
Did you hear the question, Tank?
Yeah, I was kind of new to it. So I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, trying new things can be kind of make you nervous. Unsure what it's gonna look like.
Ah!
I think.
I think Ting is telling us how he felt as well, leaving the day program and going to transition services. But Chuck, I really, really love that response. I love the honesty in your response. And, you know, I think that many individuals would have that answer if they talked about what it felt like for them to be in a service for such a long time and then make that transition to another service that has a particular focus. And so,
It's like
you know,
graduated.
Say it again.
say that one more time.
It's like I graduated.
Yes, it is like you graduated.
Yeah.
That's excellent. And you know, with graduating comes a congratulations. So I definitely want to congratulate you on being ambitious and, you know, being and having a lot of courage to go to another service that you knew absolutely nothing about. So kudos to you. Ting, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your insight as well. I'm not sure if Scott was able to get on, but please send Scott my thank yous. You know, he did meet with us the other day and he provided insight as well. So we're definitely appreciative of that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to say? Anything that the staff would like to say about these gentlemen and the transition? By all means.
I think that I want to echo Chuck's statement, like he didn't know what he was getting into. He didn't know what was going to be involved. And I think Scott, Chuck, and Ting all took a leap and wanted to try something new and explore different opportunities. And I think that it's really, I think it was brave to do that. And I think they've really had a lot of progress. So I think nice work, you guys. I think,
Agreed.
good job. Yeah. We appreciate
Thank
that
you.
you're on this journey with us.
All right.
Yeah. It's like we want Dolly behind and open a new book.
That's right.
Yes, you're doing a great
That's
job.
right.
Yeah.
That's excellent. All right. Thank you all so much again. We're very appreciative. Definitely want to thank UCP for collaborating with us and having these individuals take the time out of their schedules to talk to us about their journey. And I do hope that that inspires some families and some individuals as it pertains to really taking that leap and finding the courage to transition into another service that could and may potentially lead to employment. And we heard the individual today talk about what employment means to her and what she's been able to do with the funds and so forth. And so at this point, I will turn it back into the hands of our Deputy Commissioner. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Daryl. And thank you to Chuck and Ting. And I think Scott might have joined. And so if you can hear me, Scott, thank you, because we see the information that you provided to Daryl. And I really appreciate all of you joining and just sharing your stories and the leap that you took to try something new. And I think that's what we're trying to get across here is there are a lot of options available to people. And so now I will turn it over to questions. And there was a question in the chat that we responded to, but I'll say it out loud as well. Is the ETS program available for adults of any age, or only for those that have recently aged out of the education system? And Daryl, I know you are a lover of ETS. Do you want to take that?
Yes, of course. Yes, so in our ETS program, there is no age minimum or age cap. Obviously, as long as this individual is eligible for our support, they can enter into the program. Again, the program ranges from 6 months to 3 years, and it is really designed to help the individual with those skills as it pertains to landing employment. There are 3 focus areas, and through those 3 focus areas, a providing agency can really get creative as to how they support an individual, whether it be through exploring places in their community, discovering things about themselves, job development skills, tasks, and mock situations, and then also self-advocacy, which is super important. Individuals understanding how to support themselves while on the job, communication with the manager, etc. And so, if there are any additional questions about ETS, please feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Wonderful, thank you. And then we have no other questions that I see. There was a question around, what is BRS? And Steph, you answered that question, I think, wonderfully. And note that just a positive response to the fact that we're working with teens at an earlier age and how important that is. I'll open it up to questions if anybody wants to raise their hand or has an additional question for any of our presenters. All right, I do see a hand up. Danielle.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is more like a case management question with BRS. Once upon a time, we used to have to get the letters from BRS saying the folks were competitively unemployable or whatever language it was. Is that still part of the process in order to qualify for the DDS side?
I love how you say, the handy dandy letter. It yes and no, yes and no. So historically, what at BRS, we used to have to determine them ineligible, that they were not able to be competitively employable, and we'd have to go through several processes in order to determine that, most of which would be placing individuals in a extended trial work plan where we can do trial work experiences, because those trial work experiences, as I mentioned, although it's to identify the skill sets and determine the environmental appropriateness, et cetera, they also can be used as an evaluation tool. We have moved significantly away from that. DDS still requires the golden ticket, but families can make the informed choice now. And we would simply draft the certificate of eligibility ineligible and provide the ineligibility letter to the families directly. I do just want to stress, and I'm sure Deputy Commissioner and the DDS folks on the line can also piggyback off of me when I say we're kind of moving away from that with Connecticut Pie and customized employment and really creating those pathways, even though we're a short-term agency, spreading out the resources over a period of time to ensure the successfulness, again, the tries before you buys, making sure we have the community partnerships with which significantly strengthen the successfulness. We really are moving away, as we all know on the call, group supported employment opportunities are few and far between, and we do collectively partner. So if we encourage a pathway of integrated employment rather than you folks making the informed choice or us finding the individual ineligible, it works out a lot more wonderfully. Let's just say that.
Okay, I appreciate that, Stephanie. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And I would say that DDS and BRS are collaborating more closely, I think, than ever before in so many ways. And so if you have questions about something relating to BRS and you want to reach out to one of our employment and day support team members, they'll connect. If you want to reach out to Brian Smith, he'll connect. we have so many opportunities in the course of any given day to connect and collaborate with our colleagues at BRS, and we'll figure out the answer. We'll figure out the process. And so I see that our EDS team has put their contact information in the chat. You also have Gunnar Abrahamson's contact information in the chat. Stephanie, we should drop your information in the chat as well so that people have your contact information. And I know that one of the benefits of these forums is you make the connection so you know who's who and you know who you can call if you have a question in the future. I want to thank all of our presenters. We had a lot of information and a combination of content and information and then inspiration. And I want to thank Keisha, who's no longer, I think, on the call, and our friends at UCP for being willing to join us and share your stories and your experiences. Because as we're talking about these different options, really the point of these forums is to see how these options work for people. Chuck, when you said, hey, I took a chance, I was kind of nervous, felt like I was graduating to something new, and it's really, really worked out. That's what people need to hear, because it can sometimes be a little scary, cause a little anxiety to try something new, to give an option a chance. And by hearing from you that it worked out and the supports were there, it gives somebody else the courage to take that chance. So thank you so much. It was great to spend this time with all of you, and have a great afternoon.